So I'm going to check out a blown up YZ250F I found on Facebook. Traveling about like 2 hours to go and check it out. The exact details on the bike, who knows? The guy says it has a blown head gasket, which is fine. I was kind of looking for a bike with a, you know, needs a new top end or something like that. But this is kind of easier. I'll probably end up doing the top end anyway. But here's the listing. Here's what it looks like from afar. So it's a 2003 YZ250. Guy's got the plastics off of it, and he said he took the carb off too. But he said it does not want to start, but does spin, needs a head gasket. And realistically, a head gasket's fine. That's not that big of a deal, as long as that's all that it is. The guy took the carb off, so I can't really look at it all together. The plastics are off, but that's not a big deal. I would end up taking those off anyway. I'll end up taking everything off no matter what, because it's got to come off to get to the head. And for the first time in like a few years, it's actually snowing. You can't really tell, but you can kind of see it over there. But it's actually snowing for like the first time in I don't know how long, and I'm actually going into Raleigh because I'm from the Charlotte area. So I'm going about 2 hours. Check out this bike. The guy has it somewhat apart. No idea what the actual condition is, but regardless, I wanted a project. Kind of what I'm looking for. But if you're seeing this, obviously I got the bike, so that's probably a telltale sign that it was worth it. Hopefully it has compression. Who knows? We'll see it when I get it. So we got the bike home, and I think it's going to be a great project. He did say the head gasket's bad. I'll show you in a second, but I did verify that the head gasket actually is bad. And here's the bike as it sits now. I did get a little excited and took some stuff off of it. Gonna get the head gasket fixed. The guy said it was 2003. I started looking up parts because it needs a few things, and turns out it's a 2002. I ran the VIN number, 2002, so that makes everything a little bit different. They're relatively the same. So I started taking everything off to get to the head gasket, which is down here. So I took the valve cover off, or the cam cover. I'm going to get the head and the cylinder off today, and while I wait for the head gasket. When I was looking at it, I kind of thought that the head gasket wasn't actually bad because the guy said he never actually had it running while he had it. So I was like, oh, maybe it's not actually the head gasket. Maybe it's like a water pump gasket or something like that. So I ordered a water pump. And then as I was messing with it, I actually kicked it over. And when the header was on, there was actually coolant coming out of the header. So it's definitely a head gasket, which sucks, but it gives me some experience in taking everything off. Here's everything off of it so far. So we've got the cams, the cam cover, this little oil banjo, and you got like 2 bolts on that other side right there. You've got 2 bolts right here, and then you've got these 2 nuts on right there. And where I'm at right now is the head won't actually come out because it's hitting on the hose or the radiator that connects the radiator. So I'm going to take that hose off back there so I can actually just lift this out. And I've still got a couple days until the head gasket gets here. So I'm just going to work on a couple other things. I got a new clutch cable to put in. I do have a new water pump seal that I'm going to put in too. Might as well while I've got everything apart. And hopefully I'm able to like visually tell that the head gasket's bad. Because if it's like a crack in the casing or something, that's actually what's leaking the coolant. That's a lot bigger of a job and more expensive, and I'm not trying to dump a lot of money into this, at least on the not fun stuff. But yeah, overall I think it's be a good bike, a good project. The guy painted this, so I'm gonna either strip this off and get it down to the white plastic. Got the plastics sitting over there. Gonna get maybe some new plastics, but the main thing right now is just to get it running. And it did have really good compression when I was working on it. When I would just move it by hand, it had really, really hard compression. And one thing about the 2002 model is they have a decompression lever that connects to right there. And this one didn't have the lever. There should be like a little lever right here. And they didn't actually have the lever, which I thought was strange. But the guy at some point put in a decompression cam, exhaust cam, which is a huge upgrade for these, and that's something I don't actually have to do now, which is really cool. All right, so I got the head off, and as you can tell, there's a ton of coolant on there. Then when you come down here and you look at the bottom of the head, you can see up there, right there is where it kind of blew. But it's good to know that that's actually what the problem was, and it's not something like deeper, like a, I don't know, the head's not got like a huge hole in it, which would be a huge problem and an expensive problem, which I don't want to do. So head gasket's on the way. That'll be easy-ish to go in, and really then I just got to put everything back together. And I'm sure I have to do valves on this thing. I might do that once I get the head back together. I'll probably just do that once I have everything back together, because if their valves are out, it's not going to start, and that'll be one less thing I want to deal with. So I don't want to order a whole shim kit, so I'm going to get the shop down the road to get me the exact one I need once I figure out the dimensions of it or whatever, the measurements, because I don't know the last time this thing ran, and I'm assuming shims. It'll need shims. All right, so we got the new gasket kit in, and came with a bunch of different stuff. I think it's like a whole top end gasket kit, but this one right here, this is the one that we need. This is gonna be the head gasket, and I matched it up with the other gasket that came off. Looks right. And basically we gotta come over here and I gotta clean up the surface of the head, or I guess not the head, this is like the cylinder. I gotta clean up the surface of this all in here and just make sure it's real shiny. There's a bits and pieces of the old gasket still on there. So I'm gonna clean that up, and then I'll walk through putting the new one on and bolting everything up. Alright, so I went to the store to go get a 3/8" torque wrench because I didn't want to have to use my 1/2 inch, just to be a little bit more precise. And Advance Auto and Lowe's do not have them. Lowe's had one that was like $200 for a digital torque wrench, but I can't justify that. So I got some adapters. Now we got to put the cams in, the cams and the cam covers, and then the valve cover, and then we got to bolt. We got to hook the radiator back up here, and then I took one bolt out right back there so I could move it freely. Then put the carb on, put the gas tank on, and then I'm sure mess with a bunch of everything because I don't know that this will actually make it run. I also did like a full carb rebuild, so I have no idea how that's gonna go, if that's gonna even run or not. So we'll probably have to do a lot of tuning. All right, so we got the valve cover on, we got the carb on, we got, I don't know, the radiator hose is connected there. There's only a couple things I need. I need the gas tank. I need to get the gas tank, hook it up to the carb. I need to add some coolant or maybe some distilled water until I get a couple heat cycles on it. I got the muffler back on. As bad as it looks, it's on, kind of. It's not very good at all, but that's fine for now. At least it'll last. Got it. So it looks like it's smoking or leaking a little bit of exhaust from over here. Tailpipe's smoking a little bit. And then we've got a little bit of fuel leaking out from right through there. It looks like it's from the lever because it's not from the bolts. So I might need to get a new petcock. But I'm just so happy that it runs, and it's not leaking coolant from anywhere that I can tell, but definitely leaking fuel. There's probably an exhaust leak from the front. Need to add coolant, need to flush the oil, but it runs. The head gasket fixed. Probably a bunch of other stuff I need to worry about, but the throttle sticks. Throttle kind of just sticks. So I got a new throttle cable coming because I know that it's fraying up in here. You can kind of see right there, it's frayed, so new throttle cable coming. But overall, very excited with how this thing's coming out so far. All right, so after that little ride you just saw, I figured that the carb is probably way out of whack. There's a lot of stuff on this carb that's a lot different from this little bike. So this carb's got a lot more tuning that needs to be done to make it run right, and a lot more, I don't know, there's just a lot of pieces moving. So as you can tell, I took the carb off, I just put it back on. I went through everything again just to make sure everything was definitely clean. And then I actually went through and checked the valves on this. The valves were actually really good on the exhaust, or sorry, the intake side. The exhaust valves, both of them were out of whack. So I got new valves new valve shims for the exhaust side. And hopefully that's gonna make it run a lot better, because it would, as you guys kind of saw, maybe you didn't, it would run fine when it was kind of cold and like just starting, but as it would get warmer, it would start to kind of bog down. And that's telling me that the valves, when they were getting hot, were expanding because they get bigger as they get hot. So those shims were really tight anyway, even when cold. So get smaller shims to let it have a little bit more gap. I don't know how to explain this right, but more gap, so when it gets hot, when they expand, the valves aren't like automatically just compressing, or the cams aren't automatically compressing the valves. Something like that. Getting everything put back together here. This carb's kind of a pain to get off. I take the whole subframe up, but we're gonna put things back together, see how everything does. I did get a new shifter in. That was really cool. This old shifter here was like super not right, and it was super loose and wobbly. So got this cool new shifter. Actually looks really good. And I also have a new throttle cable to put on that came in yesterday, because this throttle cable has some bad fraying right right there. So it's not snappy at all. Gonna get that swapped out, make it run a lot better. Sucker's getting hot. You guys see how hot that's getting? That can't be good. That cannot be good. And it was backfiring like crazy. I'm gonna have to do some research on why it's backfiring, but I mean it's running, which is like a lot of progress. Just gonna see what I can find. I assume the backfiring means it's too lean. Maybe. I mean, yeah, it's running lean, so I'm gonna try messing with the fuel screw, or I guess the idle mixture screw, which is right there. You can see that. So I'm gonna try turning that out a little bit at a time, meaning giving it more fuel a little bit at a time, and see what that does. Progress though, I guess. Oh man, it's going so well. So I don't know if you can tell, but it's been quite a few days of working on this, trying to get it all running. Honestly, it's a lot of just working on the carburetor. The head gasket, all that stuff that I initially did was pretty easy, but taking a look at the carburetor, I ended up getting like a Chinese knockoff from Amazon. That was horrible. So I just stuck with the stock carburetor. And I essentially just went up and down in jet sizes for the Pilot. I've got all these jets here. I've got even more. These are all the main jets. I've got a whole set of Pilot jets. So I started with the Pilot, tried to work until I could get a good idle on it, and then I moved over to the main jets and worked on that and trying to get the main jets and get it to where it would run down the road. Obviously that's the main jet, is kind of when it's running like a quarter throttle to I think like 50% throttle maybe. But I got all that running and I went for a ride yesterday, so I haven't actually done much testing on it at all. That's what we're about to go see. So I'm gonna go actually do like the real test of this bike, and hopefully it does run. I know I ordered a couple of new leak jets, which I may or may not film, because when you like blip the throttle really quick, that's when the leak jet comes into play and the accelerator pump. So there's a little bit of work to be done on that. It didn't make much of a difference when I was taking it for a ride yesterday. Granted, it was like a 2-minute ride. So this will be like the real test, and hopefully it'll be good to go. But let's fire it up, get it warmed up, and see what she does.
Disrespect, so I disregard fools, all of them be facades. They're still in the streets and they're writing statements. Oh my lord, there's rats at large. I copped it soft, but I turned it hard. Like how your girl gets me after dark. None of my peers got applied, no pressure. VI hold and I'm on that bars. Disrespect, so I disregard fools, all of them be facades. They're still in the streets and they're writing statements. Oh my lord, there's rats at large. I copped it soft, but I turned it hard. Like how your girl gets me after dark. None of my peers got applied.
This thing is quick. It needs a little bit more tuning, I think. But I mean, good enough for now, for sure. Looks pretty good. Oh, I'm out of breath. Jeez, too fat to even ride. Yeah, definitely needs new decals. I mean, now that it's running, I get to do all the fun stuff to it, which is awesome.